think about PTSD, the hallmark symptoms are sort of like a verb. It's not really a noun. We have a traumatic event happen, and then how we react to it is part of what happens. So we get these re-experiencing symptoms of the traumatic event, either in the form of nightmares or vivid, intrusive memories, or maybe even full-on flashbacks.
Which is basically as if I'm there. I'm hearing the explosions, I'm seeing the shooting.
In addition to that, there's avoidance, trying to stay away from things that remind you of the traumatic incident that you've experienced.
The person's perspective of the world changes. The world is not a good place anymore. It's not a safe place anymore. People are not good anymore. I cannot trust them anymore. I'm a bad person. A lot of time, unfortunately, these cognitions that happen are about oneself. Why did this happen to me? What did I do wrong that this happened to me?
In addition, there are hyperarousal symptoms, that sense of constantly being on edge, constantly being on guard, looking for the danger. Basically, people with PTSD feel like they're back in the time of the trauma all the time.
And so we're really looking at those four main symptoms after traumatic event: re-experiencing, arousal or distress, avoidance, pushing away those feelings, and then changed unhelpful thoughts.
My PTSD symptoms were varied, and they ranged in severity over time, but consistent ones were insomnia. I just couldn't go to sleep at night. And I'd be very irritable. I'd be so snappish. The littlest thing would set me off. And then sometimes a big thing wouldn't set me off. You know, my emotions were all over the place, and I'd always prided myself on being a person that was pretty even-keeled. And then I'd be like, what am I doing? Why am I screaming at my kids for no reason? Why are my husband and I having like the worst fights of our marriage? Why can't I sleep? It was all these whys.
I started isolating from people. I was a city councilman in suburban Chicago for years. You can't be a city councilman if you're not somebody that's in the public, if you're gregarious. I was all those things. And I was the life of the party with our friends, but I started pulling away. Took a bunch of pills. I wanted to diminish my pain. And if that meant dying, then so be it. Because the level of pain I was in, I wasn't having a quality of life anymore. I did take pills that doctors had always said they're contraindicated, but that's how much pain I was in on that particular night. I was having nightmares. You don't want to die, you just want that pain to stop.
To cope with the trauma, we would joke, we would drink, we would deflect in any kind of way not to feel. So over time, those unresourceful strategies kind of increased and got a little stronger, and I started to get really hypervigilant. I would go into restaurants and watch for exits and watch people. I got into fights, and I could legitimize that because I felt they threatened me. I started stepping in and with people I didn't even know and getting in the middle of their stuff. I had nightmares, and I started having emotion for no reason. I would just cry for no apparent reason at all. I found myself alone a lot.
Not everybody that experiences a traumatic event gets PTSD. In fact, the majority of people can experience traumatic events and then experience what we call natural recovery. But for some people, sort of avoidance sets in early because it doesn't feel good to have these memories. And once that avoidance gets rolling, it can be really hard to sort of shake the symptoms, get rid of the nightmares, go back and re-engage with your family or with your friends out in the world. And so one of the things that's important is that if you have PTSD and you experience that your life is getting smaller and smaller and smaller because of the avoidance, that you reach out and get some help.